We will call to order the City of Laguna Beach Planning Commission meeting of May 20th. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Dubin,
Here.
Commissioner Sadler,
Here.
Commissioner Whiten,
Here.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Here.
Chair Kellenberg.
Here. Okay, thank you. On that basis, we will get started. We will start with public communications. This is an opportunity for anybody to get up and talk to the Planning Commission on items that are not on the agenda. Oh, yeah. Commissioner Goldman, is there anybody with you that is sharing your moment there remotely?
I wouldn't call it a moment, but no, nobody's here.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody would like to address the commission at this time, we will move on to the consent calendar. And there are two sets of minutes on the consent calendar. Is there anybody on the Planning Commission that would like to pull either set of minutes? Is there anybody in the public that would like to pull the minutes? Anything on the consent calendar? On that basis, could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sadler,
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten,
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to the public hearings. The first item is Design Review 25-0261. The applicant is the City of Laguna Beach, and so I will hand it over to the Public Works Department to bring us up to speed on this item.
Okay, sorry about that delay. Good evening, Chair and fellow planning commissioners. My name is Tom Perez. I'm the city engineer with the Public Works Department. Tonight, we will be presenting design item 5.1, which is Design Review 25-0261, which is the City of Laguna Beach Fire Station Number 4 project. Before I get into the finishes, a bit of background. The project previously was presented to the Planning Commission for a design review and a coastal development permit approval. With that approval, the project then was presented to the City Council. At the City Council meeting, the Council upheld the approval with the condition for staff to work with two of the Planning Commissioners, Morris Skandarian, and to select final finishes and landscape elements for the project. So following that meeting, I did meet with Commissioner Whiten and Dubin. We met also with Morris Skandarian. We selected several of the finishes. Following that meeting, I did receive a request from the South Laguna Civic Association for an additional meeting with them. I shared the finishes that we had selected, received some additional input and incorporated some of that into the design, and then also some of the options that will be presented here tonight. So diving right into it, with the proposed building finishes, some of the key elements being the masonry block. We decided on the split-faced block, color being the black 100, and I have a slide showing what those are. I'll get to each individually. With the metal flashing, we decided on an aluminum siding with a dark bronze color. The wood siding at the meeting with the planning commissioners and Morris Skandarian, we decided on an advanced PVC and composite material. So not a natural wood, but we landed on two colors with the idea that we would include both colors to provide a variation and just really to get that aesthetic and feel of a real wood. In my meeting with the South Laguna Civic Association members, they did express their concerns about using synthetic materials and requested that staff provide an alternate real wood. So the original proposal by the city and the city's architect was to use an Akoya wood, which is a natural wood. It can be stained. It's very durable, weather resistant. So I'll be presenting that tonight for your input and consideration as well. Looking at the painted stucco, the original proposal, it had various colors. So the building had, I believe it was 3 different colors. In the meeting with the planning commissioners and Morris Skandarian, we decided it was best to have one single color throughout. And so that proposed color is the Flintstone, which is on the board here, and I'll also show it on a slide. And then on the large retaining wall on the site, we decided to finish that wall with a stucco finish, a painted stucco finish. And then lastly, the apparatus doors, there was a lot of discussion on that. They will have a dark bronze frame to match the aluminum on the building and dark tinted glass. So when that is seen from the street, it will give the appearance it's all dark material. So on this screen, again, we see the various elements. So the split face block is incorporated into the building at various locations. Most prominent is going to be on the Fifth Avenue side and near the building entrance. Then we have the wood siding that wraps around the top of the building, the front deck, and then kind of wraps around the side. The aluminum siding is going to cover the northerly side of the building, and then it will have the accents around the top of the building and each level of the building. Again, showing the different colors on the painted stucco and on the retaining wall. So on the bottom right photo, you see the large retaining wall in the back. That's where we would have that painted stucco being the dark gray. So just to first look at the block, as I mentioned, we're going to select the split face block. In discussions with Morris, he highly recommended that we use the struck joints. So this profile here is intended to give that photo. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a photo that showed both the block and the joint, but this is to kind of give an idea of what that'll look like and what that grout pattern, and then the grout, as stated, would match the block. This slide's showing the Alumacoat aluminum siding, which is the dark bronze color AB4, which again will be covering the side of the building, and then the accents going along the front and around the apparatus bay doors. On this slide, this is a photo showing what the PVC and composite siding would look like. Again, we're proposing the horizontal siding. Some of the advantages that comes in a tongue and groove finish. It has your optimum water resistance and protection for the building. The new technology, it does provide authentic wood look and feel, so you can feel some texture to give the illusion of that wood grain. We would also, like I said, incorporate 2 colors for a variation. And although it has an initial higher cost than wood, it does last longer, requires less maintenance in the future. The colors we selected are the weathered teak and the coconut husk. This photo is showing an example of what the Akoya wood looks like. So this is, as shown in this photo, it is the Akoya wood in its natural state. And this is what we were proposing. We do not propose to stain the wood, although that is a possibility if we wanted to stain it to match the color of the synthetic wood that was chosen. But our original proposal was to go with the wood in its natural feel, which is shown in this photo. Also shown in this photo is that horizontal siding. So a little bit about the Akoya wood. As I mentioned, it's durable, stable, versatile. It can be ordered with any type of profile, so we could have that in tongue and groove, shiplap. So it's very versatile, produced in the U.S. and sustainable.
Tom, I'm trying to understand the photo. Is it that light tan?
The light tan, yes.
That's the natural color.
Yes. If you see my cursor there,
Thank you.
that color there. Again, although we're not proposing that, it can be stained. It is natural wood. It can be stained and sealed if that is the desire. Looking at the painted finishes, as I mentioned, we made the decision to have the painted stucco on the building all be the same color, so we no longer have different colors for each segment of the building. So that proposed color being the Flintstone by Dunn Edwards, shown there and also on the material board here in front of me. And then the photo on the right side is showing the Dunn Edwards formal gray on the large retaining wall. And as we'll see when I get into the landscape design, we are also, together with the stucco, painted stucco retaining wall, we are proposing vines to break up some of that massing on the wall as well. And as I mentioned, with the apparatus bay doors, we're showing the dark bronze finish to match the aluminum around the building. In this rendering, it doesn't show the dark tint because we wanted to make sure everyone was able to see that they are glass windows, but those would have the dark tint. One thing I did want to show on this slide, there was been a lot of discussion about the bollards in front of the building. I asked the architect to leave those in this rendering because they were part of the design review approval. But in the discussions, we looked at several options, different shapes, different styles, and ultimately arrived at the conclusion that the building would look best to have those removed. And so that's an option that I would like input from the entire planning commission and from the public. We did work through that with the architect. We don't have any safety concerns. Those were more of an architectural element than a safety element. So I wanted to bring that up for discussion and receive additional input on that. So going through, and I know this is a lot of text on the slide, but just a big overview of the proposed landscape plan. I think most important, maybe most prominent on the site is the corner of Coast Highway and Fifth Avenue. Just wanted to remind everyone that area was left for the public art. And so the public art was going to include not only an art piece, but the landscape to have it all tie in and work together. And that call for public artists is closing May 31st, so roughly a week and a half. So we'll learn a lot about what that corner of the building is going to look like. And I think that dictates some of how the planting will work along the side of the building and beyond. The retaining wall vine, as shown on the plan, we're proposing the climbing fig, the Ficus pumila. The thought, again, is that we would use that in the back area to break up the massing of that retaining wall. And that, I wanted to point out, is not a vine called out in the Alshard. However, when we looked at the specific vine here, there was another variation, the Ficus repens, that is in the Alshard, but this fits this area better and it gives that similar look. So that's why we're proposing that use here. At the top of the retaining wall, we're proposing to use the California coffee berry. The intent at the top of the retaining wall is really to create a buffer between the residential property and the and the development of our site. I'll talk a little bit later. There was a public comment saying get rid of that and put gravel. While we would love that from a maintenance standpoint, I don't think that is the intent. We are looking at breaking up that view for the neighbor looking towards our building, but also selecting a plant that wouldn't grow too tall. So our original plant called out in that area was the lemonade berry, which would grow very tall. And so we, in working through hearing the comments at the previous hearing, we landed on this California coffee berry to provide that landscape buffer, low water at the top of the wall, and low maintenance, but still provide that buffer. Along Virginia Way, we are proposing the shrub lining up pretty much the extent of the retaining wall. Then where the area flattens out, we'll have a mixture of different plants. But the intent at the retaining wall with the cable guardrail is that we would have that shrub row to provide screening along the back of the building. The Coast Highway trees. So there's two existing eucalyptus trees along Coast Highway that are going to be removed. And this was something I did speak with the South Laguna Civic Association folks. Those trees, unfortunately, we can't. It's very hard to find that species to the point reaching out to local nurseries. I've been told they don't grow that type. So we went away from replacing it with the same eucalyptus species, and we're proposing the Eucalyptus forestania. There is one that's planted in front of the community gardens, and that's the tree that we were proposing. With the Fifth Avenue trees, again, we were looking at trees that were in the medium size range. We wanted to ensure that we provide that vertical screening and kind of break up the massing of the building, but we also didn't want to select a tree that was going to be too large where it would impact the views of the homes further up Fifth Avenue. So with that, looking at the various trees, looking at colors, we did select the Western Redbud, and I'll address some of the public comment on that tree a little later as well. One of the things that came out of my conversation with South Laguna Civic was incorporating the San Onofre breccia boulders into the landscape. And I was directed to a site here in the city that has those boulders. I was able to reach out and talk with the property owner. He did give us his verbal okay that the city would be able to take those and use them in our design. Fortunately, I couldn't get good photos because that site's being used as a construction staging area right now, so I couldn't get in and get photos of what those look like. But the idea is that we would have the landscape architect out on site placing those, and then with the recommendation that they would be embedded 1/3 depth into the soil to provide that natural look and feel. So that's something we're committed to doing and incorporating those into the design. The other change, we are proposing the cobble at the building base. So the original design included a concrete strip around the edge of the building, around the perimeter of the building, just to really get water away from the building. So in looking at the landscape plan, looking at ways to soften that, we're recommending to replace that concrete strip with the cobble base. And so this Mesa cobble, as we were looking through, this is actually the same cobble that was used throughout the village entrance. Received a lot of good feedback, so we are proposing that. We feel it fits well with that location and function. And then just site-wide hardscape, we're looking light, medium broom finishes, gray concrete throughout. In the sidewalk areas, the public frontage on Coast Highway and on Fifth Avenue, we're proposing the 2-foot by 2-foot square score joints for the finish there with the light broom finish. So with this slide, again, I just wanted to kind of point out the location of some of the plants that were shown. So looking at the Eucalyptus forestana up in the front near the entryway to the building. along the Coast Highway frontage and along Fifth Avenue, and in the back area where we have one tree is where we are proposing the western redbud. I wanted to point out the carex. There was comment not to use that plant, but as it was noted on the landscape plan, the carex is only proposed in the water quality basin area. So that's intended more for water quality and would only happen in that one specific site, which is behind the gate in the backyard area of the building. Showing the cobblestone, again, that's in the area where it would wrap around the perimeter of the building, be a buffer between the building and the landscape planting. And then showing up in the top right is where we're proposing the vines to grow on the retaining wall. And then as discussed, we would have the planting running between the buildings. We're looking at a single row of planting to provide, again, that landscape buffer, low maintenance, low water, but it does provide some greenery, some buffering between the two properties without growing so tall that it could impact views. And along the back, as I mentioned, we're proposing the shrub basically from the corner of the building to about where the existing storm drain catch basin inlet is. And that's about the area where our retaining wall ends. And we would also in that location be ending the cable guardrail, and we would go into the wood and iron gate or fence, which I'll detail a little further down. And at the bottom, I did provide a photo of what the San Onofre breccia looks like. That's one we have at in the parking lot over at Aliso Beach. So I did want to show that, but there is a site, like I mentioned, where we feel we can source the boulders and spread those through the landscape design. This again is just a photo of the two tree types that we're proposing. Both trees, I would classify, and I may be wrong, but I would classify these as medium growing trees. So they're not large. This variety of eucalyptus is not going to grow, 30, 40 feet. These trees are going to be more in the 20 to 25 foot height range. The redbud will spread a little more, but these are the proposed trees for the site. The shrubs and ground cover, these are photos as called out. These will be placed throughout the hatched areas on the plans, and then some of the larger plants are called out of where they'll be placed. So I'll let this kind of speak for itself. And then I wanted to get into the public comment. And, for this, I'll paraphrase, but again, the first comment being that the single row of rhamnus between the buildings should be, it was classified as a waste of money and a poor plant choice. It recommended replacement with gravel. As I mentioned, the intent there is really to provide that buffer. It's not from the public side is not highly visible. The intent was really to provide that landscape buffer at the top of the retaining wall between the two properties. The comment not to plant another redbud, and that was received by two public comments. We did receive a recommendation to replace the redbuds with the eucalyptus that we're proposing on site, and staff's reviewed that. We certainly are open to that recommendation and would be happy to include that in the final plan. Question of where the vine is and a recommendation not to place it on the building. So our intent, as I mentioned, is to use that only on the retaining wall, only on the site retaining wall. We will not be planting any vines on the building itself. A recommendation not to plant the Mulgenbergia. Again, we are not opposed. We can remove that. There was a comment for the Baccharis to only use Pigeon Point, which is the dwarf variety, and that is what we are proposing. So we're on board with that. I apologize, I get these names all wrong. The Aliogni is concerned that it's not a long-lived plant in a commercial setting. Again, this plant is more of a, it's providing color in the landscape, but we are not opposed to remove that plant from the palette. Again, the South Laguna Civic Association strongly prefers the natural wood over the proposed PVC and composite. From a staff point of view, you know, we, as far as constructability, we feel either type works, either works for that setting from long-term maintenance. You know, we don't have preference one over the other. So I would really appreciate hearing from Planning Commission, and we'd be happy to proceed with either type. Again, mentioning the natural wood, the natural Akoya wood was the original proposal by our architect. And then a question again about the San Onofre breccia and the Mesa cobble. With the San Onofre breccia, you know, I've done these on previous jobs, and as I mentioned, I think the best way, rather than trying to show those on the plan itself, is to have the landscape architect on the site and siting those together with the contractor. That would allow us to pick various sizes for various locations, orient them different ways. So that would be my recommendation, and that's why we didn't show specific locations until we're really able to uncover those and see what our stock is, what we're dealing with. It would potentially be misleading to show those in specific locations. And as I mentioned, the cobble is proposed along that 12-inch wide strip along the perimeter of the building. One of the things, and there's a slide at the end of my presentation, South Laguna Civic Association objects to the split face block. They are recommending that we provide a San Onofre breccia veneer rather than that split face. There was a lot of conversation about this, both at the public hearing and in meetings following the hearing. Staff's understanding was that the CMU block was the finish, and we were coming forward with the selected finish being split face and the color being the Orco Black 100. Again, from a constructability standpoint, I do not have a concern going with the breccia veneer. My biggest concern is the availability of material. And again, we've been made aware of a site where that exists here in town. We are also trying to get that material for our Coast Highway medians, if you recall Alpha's presentation. So that would be my biggest concern, is the availability of the material. Asking about the pedestrian adjacent fence or barrier along Fifth Avenue. So I did have a detail from our construction set that's being put together. The intent along Fifth Avenue, we are proposing a steel frame with horizontal slats with the Akoya wood. So the intent was that siding, or gate would kind of mirror the siding on the building. And so I have a slide showing what that would look like, and I can get into that. There was some skeptical about the view of the building in one of the perspective views. I'll show, I feel that we do detail it accurately, and I can show that in a slide here. The planting palette needs to incorporate some plants that are more widely used throughout the neighborhood. Looking at that, we did feel that we would be able to introduce some agave into it, some salvia, Didis bicolor, and blue chalk sticks, and I'll have a slide showing what those look like, and we're happy to do that. One of the things along Virginia Way, there was a question about the shrubs. So I have a slide to discuss that, but we feel that shrub is consistent with the surrounding area with what exists actually on the site today and across the street from the site. So we can look at that. And then, as I mentioned before, changing the trees to the fuchsia gum, which we're okay with. And then the last comment that we received was to change where we do propose the fuchsia gum in front of the building near the entryway. The comment requested that we, rather than using that variety of eucalyptus, that we use the same one that's being removed along Coast Highway. But as I mentioned, there are the challenges of sourcing that tree. So that's something we would want to stick with our proposal of the fuchsia gum, but we're happy to discuss that further. So looking at the exterior gates, so on top of the retaining wall is where we're proposing a steel frame and cable guardrails, and those are more for fall protection. The idea is that they are see-through because they're going to be screened with the landscape planting. Along Fifth Avenue and a short portion of Virginia Way is where we have the steel frame with the Koya wood slats. And this photo here provides our detail of what that gate would look like. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a photo from the front of the gate, but this gives you an idea of what those horizontal slats would look like. There's a small gap in between each slat, but it is the steel frame. And so that is the proposal along Fifth Avenue and that short portion of Virginia Way.
But is this the same wood that would be on the building?
It would be the same wood if we go with the
You go
Akoya
with
wood.
But this looks like a completely different color.
It is, yes. I couldn't find a photo of that exact wood in this application.
So this is, okay. So
This is a-
this isn't a Koya.
This
in
is
the
not-
photo.
No, this is more a representation of the horizontal slats with the steel frame. Again, the current plan right now, the detail on the right is calling the stainless steel posts with the cable railing, and this photo is an example of what that would look like. The intent, again, being that this would be up against the landscape planting at the top of the retaining wall. So it is providing the views through. We're trying to go with really minimal visual impact of this, but providing the safety that's required at the top of the retaining wall. The question on the proposed perspective view was questioning the way the aluminum siding was shown, and how that works along the edge of the building. So I was able to find this photo that was taken that shows that perspective view with the staking that was done on site. It's very hard, but I did point to it with the yellow. I wanted to trace it, but I wanted you to also see that this was the staking. So we feel that view is an accurate representation of what you would see from that angle. And then again, looking at the existing Virginia Way planting, so the proposed site is on the left with a quite overgrown shrub. The intent again would be along that back. We would have a maintained shrub row between the street AC curb and our retaining wall, and that would kind of mirror what we have across the street, where you see the shrub row, and as it flattens out, the shrub row ends and it goes into a ground cover type planting. So at our corner, we would have the ground cover and shrub mixture there. So we do feel that shrub row is in character with the surrounding area, and it also provides the screening of the back of house of the fire station. So these are the 4 plants that I mentioned. So one of the plants that we are very familiar with here in town, we know it survives well. working with our maintenance folks, we could recommend inclusion of the foxtail agaves, and then also the autumn sage, fortnight lily, and the blue chalk sticks. So if there's a desire to bring in plantings that we see more often around town, we felt that these 4 would be candidates for that. This slide here, again, is showing what that breccia stone veneer could look like, would look like. And that's just really in place of all the areas where there was a proposal for the CMU block, the split face stone. And one thing I think I failed to mention, it was in the agenda report. We did intend to, on the low, I referred to it as garden wall, retaining wall. We did commit to that wall being veneered with the breccia because it is a smaller element where we felt comfortable that we would be able to source enough material to do that. But the request from the community being to do that in all areas where we have the masonry block. And with that, oops, I ended my slideshow, but that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the commission?
That was a very thorough presentation, Tom. Thank you. I think you picked up everybody's comments. I'd like to start with the landscape plan. It's very general. There's no spacing shown for any of the plant material. There are no numbers of plant materials in the plan provided. In fact, there's no landscape architect shown on the plan itself. So it doesn't have, I mean, this is more of a concept review, and there's a lot of input on changing up some of the plant material, adding new species and deleting some of the species. Is in that case, what would happen in the process? Would the landscape plan come back to the Planning Commission?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, as originally contemplated, it was left to the approval of the city manager. But to that point, I do understand, and I guess one of the things we're hesitate to detail it too much is I feel it is still there's still chance for change depending on what that public art looks like. And that's why we were keeping it general to understand what that palette is, and then we can further detail. But that was kind of some of the hesitation of, detailing it too much, is there is a significant portion that stands to change. That's not the design being provided by our landscape architect.
I think you made that clear, that is a separate situation. But is the idea that, I mean, is your intent that we would approve this tonight?
Yes, so through the chair, in this case, this is not a design review hearing. The design review hearing has already taken place and the project has been approved. What we're looking at tonight is exclusively the material selection for exterior materials, landscape materials, and all of this feedback collected this evening would be provided to the city manager's office, the city manager more specifically, for a decision on how to move forward. This is not a hearing. It is a public meeting to be able to discuss the merits of the material selections, and any type of recommendation that the Planning Commission can provide as a consolidated body would be helpful.
Okay, but ultimately it's in the hands of Dave Kiff.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, in terms of the wood cladding, the 2 alternatives, does the Akoya wood weather at all, or is it stable?
There would be weathering. So as I mentioned, there's different options. It could be stained again. That just requires it to be restained and maintained. But there would, like with any natural wood, there would be weathering.
Mm-hmm. Okay. among other things on the landscape plan, where is the water quality area located? It's not identified on the plan.
Yeah, that is, I can bring that up. So that's in this little finger just behind and to the left of the gate into the back.
Yeah, okay.
So it's that little planting strip, and then there's the tree adjacent to it.
Okay, and so is that intended to retain water?
That's to meet our water quality requirement to treat the water on the site. So we would be draining to that area and then pump the water out.
Okay. Okay, I think you've raised a lot of good questions that we can get into discussion about, but those are my questions. Thank you.
Tom, in regards to the potential of changing from the block to the stone veneer, how does that affect the actual construction of the sub wall or whatever you want to call it? Because with the block, you don't have a separate structural wall, and I'm assuming with the veneer there would be a 2x6 or some kind of internal structural wall that the veneer would go up against.
Yeah, I think just because we are so far through the design, we would likely just change that to like a precision block, so just a standard gray block,
And then,
and then apply the
the veneer on top of
veneer.
it.
Yeah.
So, but you're feeling that there's a potential of just not being able to have enough material to do all the replacement of all the split face block.
That's my biggest concern. I didn't want to promise
Right.
we can do that, only to find out we don't have sufficient material.
Okay, and where do you find it if it's even available? Are we searching around the world for that, or?
So, I because I was made aware of one site here. There's someone here who does have a lot of that.
That's Verdugo?
Verdugo, correct. Just to provide myself some backup, I did a lot of research looking at various material supply areas. I have not been able to find one that would provide it. I know there's been comments made at the public hearing of other areas where there was assimilated, but that was never the conversation
Right.
here. It was more we were going to go with the block. But that's really, at the end of the day, my biggest concern is that we may not be able to deliver on that.
So does that, not that we get into cost, but is it 6 of one, half dozen the other? I mean, is there a cost difference in the two? I'm assuming the block is less expensive.
Yeah, there would be a cost difference, but I would say on the scale of a project of this size, I wouldn't say that that's
Not
significant.
impactful.
Yeah.
Okay. On the Fifth Avenue side where the gym is, which
Yes.
is that block, sort of the biggest block wall that's really noticeable. I think we talked about there being a vine potentially growing up that wall just to kind of take the edge off the blockiness of it, so to speak. Is that off the table at this point? That was my
I'll say
recollection.
I may have just blanked on that. I don't honestly don't recall that. But that wasn't something we were proposing at this point. But again, I may have just missed that, so I did not explore that in depth.
Well, the only reason I bring it up is because I was suggesting 3 additional, sort of horizontal little windows on that side just to break up the block wall. And
Right.
everybody agreed that that wasn't necessary because we could put a vine up that wall that would break it up. So
Yeah.
that's where the conversation came from.
Okay. Yeah. My recollection and what we're proposing was it was the combination of shrubs and the tree. but willing to take input. The vines on the building, I will say that provides or presents a
Maintenance issue.
future maintenance issue.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we would prefer from that end to not have a vine growing on our
Okay.
building, but
All right.
we can discuss.
And the pylons, the block pylons that are in front of the apparatus bays, those are potentially gone, right?
Correct. I didn't want to unilaterally say we removed them because they were part of the
Right.
design review, but we we did look at that in depth, in detail, and I think the conclusion was that the best visual appearance was to just remove them.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree with that. So as you know, I was going to have a question on the boulders as well, but I understand that you're waiting to place those depending on, you know, the public art aspect and where and then the final plant selection and tree selection. I'm assuming that that will happen sort of on site as you know, as you have answers to all those other questions.
Correct, and a lot of that's gonna really come down to the individual character of each boulder once we're able to uncover them.
Okay, I think that's all the questions I have for now. Thanks, Tom.
Couple things back to the siding again. So right now you're saying that, you know, the options are this natural wood or this PVC composite TimberTech type siding. Do you also consider just fiber cement board siding that's often used, you know, like party plank or something like that?
Yeah, we really didn't. If you recall, we did have that material proposed where we're now showing the CMU block, and that sort of got thrown out with a lot of emotion attached. So, you know, we didn't look into that.
Okay, I'm just wondering, you know, sustainability wise and stuff. There was some comments from the public about, you know, using a PVC composite stuff for a fire station, and if it's ever subjected to fire, maybe it would be putting off toxic fumes or something like that. And I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. But anyhow, okay, I'd forgotten that the fiber cement board was part of the project at one point. Regarding the eucalyptus trees, you explained that, you know, replacing the type that are there now is difficult, if not impossible, to find those species. Are the ones that are being proposed now as the replacement eucalyptus trees, are those, I know there's ongoing debate about the fire safety of eucalyptus trees and whether they're fire prone in general, or if certain types of eucalyptus trees are more fire resistant, say, than others. Do you have any feedback on this particular type of eucalyptus tree, whether or not this is appropriate to have next to a fire station?
Yeah, not specifically in terms of, you know, is this more a fire resistant than another eucalyptus? But the one thing I would say is it's a much smaller variety, so we don't have as big a concern with that.
Okay. And regarding the shrubs proposed along Virginia Way that you explained, you know, the goal there is to have them provide some screening, but not to get so large that they become a view impact issue. Is that why? Because in the staff report, it mentioned that lemonade berry shrubs, bushes were originally proposed along there. Were those then changed because they tend to get too large?
Yes, we did receive comments on the lemonade berry bush because they do grow so large, especially up at the top of the retaining wall. There was a feeling that they would grow so tall that they would provide visual view impacts. And then along that along Virginia Way, I think my concern would be with the proposed plants in that area. You know, they will need to be maintained. They will need to be kept from growing into the roadway. And I just don't know how well the lemonade berry bush would deal with that. That's more, it wants to grow in its natural form and spread. So if we went and we're cutting that back, I think it wouldn't have a very good appearance.
Okay. And then I'm looking at, I'm not sure if you can bring this one up, but it's perspective a proposed perspective view, number 3, which is kind of showing the corner of Fifth Avenue and South Coast Highway there. And when you were discussing the possibility of having some of this block with the real San Onofre breccia stone veneer on it, and you're possibly suggesting maybe just doing it on that garden site wall, which is looking at that perspective number 3, that would be the one facing South Coast Highway there. But I'm wondering, looking at what's there on that elevation that's facing Coast Highway, if they were to use some of that stone veneer on that site wall, that garden wall, and then also at the kind of the front door entry wall, and then the other wall that's facing South Coast Highway closest to Fifth Avenue, that's not all of the block wall, but it's kind of changing that front elevation to change that block wall to all be having kind of the veneer on it. Do you think that you'd be able to source possibly enough to get those 3 expanses of walls covered with the veneer?
It would be speculative, but I could commit to having that be our primary goal.
Okay, because I just thought maybe that would be a good compromise. That answers my questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Goldman, do you have some questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Tom. You've mentioned availability of plants as a potential issue and availability of some of the materials. Is that related to what's going on in the world right now? That inventories of materials are diminishing, or is it just regular old supply and demand? In other words, is it an extraordinary potential for unavailability, or is it kind of normal course?
No, so on these 2 specific materials, starting with the breccia, it's more because that's naturally occurring in this area. So, finding it in a form where we can take and use it as a veneer, it's just not something that you would find at material yards. So that it's very specialized and natural occurring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as far as the eucalyptus trees, it really comes down to the variety. They're just like when I spoke with the representative I work with at Devil Mountain, which is a very large nursery, and he said they just do not grow that. And so I think what happens is with some of these species, if they're not popular, they're not growing them, or not in this part of the world. Again, if they're
Okay.
native to Australia, maybe we could find them there. He did commit to me though that he's going to look through tree brokers and really try to find. I asked him if he could find me one for the Coast Highway and the largest size possible. So that's kind of he's out on the hunt for that.
Okay, and it's somewhat related question is cost. Have you, because I'm assuming you haven't bought anything out at this point, and are you still working on cost? And the reason I asked the question, because I think we're in an environment of cost escalation, which I think is going to get more severe. Is there potential cost escalation that could impact any of the design aspects of the project?
So yeah, I mean, cost is always certainly at the top of our list of concerns. Right now, just with everything we do, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're wondering, are contractors really going to bid high because they're uncertain by the time they start the project where prices may be. We just opened bids 2 weeks ago, I believe, on the site retaining wall. We were actually surprised the bids did come in under our engineer's estimate, and we had a very high number of bids. So a couple things happening. I think we see there are rising costs as far as materials, labor, but we're also seeing, I think there's a lot of people are really hungry for the work, and there's a lot of people out looking. So we're getting very competitive prices. So it's a little bit of both. It just makes it very, very hard for us. But our intent when we take this forward, as we go through the building, we're keeping costs in mind, but definitely we're committed to the finishes that are being selected. And there's been thought that's gone into these. There was talk about, if you recall, sorry to bring it up, Commissioner Dubin, but there was talk about using real copper siding. And, and that was one thing where we had to look at it and say, other than aesthetics, it just really, may get us to a point where it's cost prohibitive. So there have been those types of considerations, but I think we're at a point here today where with what we're proposing, what we're discussing, we feel that those are realistic and would fit within the project budget.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple questions. You said you did a lot of research on the stone, and it sounds like, I don't know anything about the stone, but it sounds like there's a single place that tends to carry it, and or two. And it's pretty easy to take a square footage off the plan. Did you just call them up and ask them if you could get it?
Yeah, so it's not a material yard. It's a private property. They have
It's a private quarry.
no,
No,
it's like in
okay.
the side yard of a private property.
Oh.
And part of the problem with that, it's hard to tell. A lot of it's buried.
Okay, so it's not, it's
hard to quantify.
Okay, so it's not a commercial.
No.
Okay. Okay, so a related question would be, there's about, 20 different types of real stone veneer that you can get that's beautiful. I mean, it seems like we're going between two extremes, split face block and this beautiful local stone that's hard to get. Did you consider something in between, like a different stone veneer that was similar in character and color to the local stone that is commercially available?
So we didn't. The reason behind that, and I'll be happy to hear some of the comments with public comment, but I believe the draw to this specific stone is because it's native to our town, native to our area. So I don't know that bringing in something simulated or something that resembles
The concrete
it
block
would meet
certainly
the-
isn't local.
right. But the draw for this stone is because
Okay, I
it's
understand.
natural here. So
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I would like to hear the comment on that alternative to the alternative. The decision that the pylons are, that the building's more attractive without the pylons. Now you have all these designers, you have the planning commission committee, you have, the local architect inputting. Was it their consensus that the building is better without the pylons, or was it Public Works?
no, that was in the conversations with the planning commissioners and Morris Skandarian. So I had really in my mind, no skin in the game. Our original proposal was to have them, but we went through, looking at several options as far as, could it be a theme? Could it be a nautical theme? Could it be round? Could it be squared? Angled. So we really explored it and couldn't come up with anything we as the group felt matched with the building and looked good. And so we landed on removal.
Okay, well, I'd also welcome comment from the public on that. Okay, so we'll now conclude planning commissioner questions and go to open the public hearing and ask for comment from the public. 3 minutes each, please.
Hello, James Henry, Vice President of South Laguna Civic, local designer, South Laguna resident. Been involved with this project since its start, and I want to thank Tom for all the meetings that we've had and the input that's been taken. And I do think that the building has come a long way. And I think I think we're at a point now where these final things that are going on it are critical in helping to differentiate it from a building that might be in Aliso Viejo versus something that belongs in South Laguna. And I think we can do it. I would say the breccia stone, there's a guy in town that was a big excavator in town, and he collected all this stone over the years. And if you've been around old Laguna houses, most of the old walls and retaining walls are built out of this stone. It's used in all of the public, the transit stops, the light standards in our section of town are all made out of this stone. It would continue that fabric into the building. I think there's probably enough stone, knowing where this is, that we could probably make it work. I did agree with Ken's commentary that there may be a way to do the front facade and the wall, and maybe we don't do the element on the side. But there are other stones, per Stephen's comment, that there's some stones that are used in the garden right down the street that are compatible, look similar, that are commercially available, that maybe we do a different element on the side and do the brachial on the front, which would tie it along the streetscape. The other thing is the natural wood. I would say, I don't know what the wood is on the Suzy-Q. It may be an Alaskan yellow cedar, but it's something similar. And if that were to, the Akoya were allowed to age, that's what it would do. It would turn a gray, but it self-protects at that point. So I think those two pieces are critical to how this building is going to face, what we're going to be looking at over the next 100 years, hopefully. I'm going to let Ann speak to the landscaping elements because she's much more versed in that. So, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your comments.
Yes, we have looked at the yard where Verdugo has collected his stone, and it's very much available. And we did use some of that at the garden. And we also got some La Cresta gray stone from Tri-State Materials at the garden. And that could be mixed in inconspicuously in the less prominent places among the San Onofre breccia. And it would be just fine. So I don't think we have to worry about not having enough stone. I think there's a number of ways to deal with that, including the other source that Tom was talking about, where they have very large stones. There might be some of those large stones that could be actually built into that front wall. The availability of the Leucoxylon rosea tree. The arborist was looking for one to replace one that was removed at Papa's Tacos, and he did find it. So I suggest talking to Matthew, because he maintains that that is the right tree, and he should be able to find another one. Regarding the landscape plan, I agree with Susan's concern that this is not really a planting plan. It's just a concept. And I'm reluctant to approve a plan that just shows crosshatching that refers to 10 different plants, and now possibly 4 more other plants. I think we should have a real planting plan and know what goes where, and should come back to the Planning Commission. I know that this is just a message you can give the city manager. He's the one, Samantha saying city manager is going to decide. Well, he could decide that it goes back to the Planning Commission after they do a real planting plan. Regarding the shrubbery on the north side along the property line with the residents, it's a whole row of all the same thing. And I hate to see that. I mean, you might as well be a ligustrum, privet hedge. I'd like to see some mixing of sizes, the rhamnus, the Catalina cherry, possibly a toyon. Have those things intermixed, have the lower ones in the front where there might be an issue. I mean, do a little sensitivity with mixing plants so that it's not just this rigid row of plants. It's very atypical for our neighborhood. The vines on the back, could I have a little more time? The vine is fine, but a red trumpet vine and Boston ivy would be really more interesting. And you'd get the red flowers going up that wall. It would be much more, it would be quicker and it would be more colorful. There's no aloes shown, and there's, again, we had the aloes added to the medians. Apparently SWA doesn't like aloes, so you might have to say specifically, put some aloes in this plan. And I really do support, I think having the breccia stone in all those areas that James depicted, I forgot to hand this to you, as you can look at it closer. It would make such a difference when you look at the bus shelters and the light standards and the theme of using that stone in the South Laguna area. This would just do a world of difference in integrating this building into the community, whereas the split face block would make it look like another town altogether. I don't know if you understood this concern here, but to me, this look, the view of this building from that side is very foreboding. And that's why we questioned it. It's just plain, it's dark, and it doesn't do anything to enhance this building at all. And I'm just wondering if there's some other treatment that could break this up so that it's not this dark wall. And we could also take those bollards that you're talking about and put them into the part of the building in between the doors, like a little, and that's what I thought when I looked at the elevations, that those were dividers between the doors. And that way they wouldn't stick out and maybe be an impediment to the trucks, but they would continue that stone theme all along the front of the building. I wouldn't want to change to block on the Fifth Avenue side, and I wouldn't want to change to another stone. We can use stone that I described in less conspicuous areas if we're running out of the breccia, but I think it's going to be fine, and I hope that you recommend that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
I live at 31792.
Why don't you state your name and make sure you write your name down on the clipboard after you're done, after you're done.
Michael Gugliotta, 31792 Virginia Way, right next door to the fire department. There were two things that struck me. One of them said that the stucco would be pink stucco. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this isn't a back and forth. If you provide your questions to the planning commission, they'll go ahead and ask staff to up to them. So go ahead and
We'll
give the
respond
comments.
after you're done. Yeah.
Okay. And the second one is there's a telephone pole, borderline property that goes to nothing. Do you have any idea when they plan on putting that underground? Are they going to do that before they build the fire department? Put the cables underground?
We'll let Tom address that when you're finished.
I'm
Yeah.
finished.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, and Tom, you want to tackle some of those?
So I'll start with the pole, the existing pole. So we have put in a work order with SDG&E to have that pole removed. As it stands today, I mean, it prevents the construction even of the retaining wall. So we're pushing SDG&E to have that done, hopefully here within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So that's in play right now to have that go away. As far as the stucco, yeah, it's proposed to be painted, but the paint color is the flint stone, which is more this brownish color here. So that's the colors. As far as some of the other comments, if I heard Anne correctly, I may need to follow up as far as the type of stone, but I heard La Cresta stone may be an alternate. That's something, if the commission desired, I'm happy to look further into that and do some research there. I will speak with our arborist, with Matthew, to look for that eucalyptus. I did ask him about that. He tended to agree that it couldn't be found. I did ask Devil Mountain to also search for that. So I didn't want to take it completely out of play, but I don't want to commit 100% I can find it, because from what I'm seeing in front of me today, it may not be available. I'm also trying to find out if there was a way they could plant it today, what size that may be by the time we're doing the landscape, but it may be quite small, maybe even smaller than a 15-gallon. So a lot of things I'm trying to figure out when I heard that comment, that public comment come in today. Mixing the plants, we can have our landscape architect look into that. Again, as I mentioned, the big concern, we did want to provide the screening. We want to make sure also when we do look at that, and I'm not saying anything new or profound, but we'll just want to make sure that the plant types are selected carefully, so you don't have one overtake everything else. That sometimes happens when we're looking, because we do want the screening. We are going to put some not very large, but larger size shrubs. So we'll need to plan that out well. That's why we went with the single type through there. Changing the type of vine. As a matter of fact, when we had this going a step backwards, the original plan was prepared by RJM, Landscape Architects. We had it peer reviewed by SWA. In their response to me, they did also propose the red trumpet or the ivy. We selected of the three we selected the ficus. So again, when I look at those, I wouldn't have anything bad to say of why I wouldn't want to change them. So open to feedback on that. And then, yeah, I guess not so much a comment, but or a response, but more of a statement as far as if we did choose to go away from the split face stone, just understanding, how we would go about selecting which areas would get a veneer, or what a potential contingency plan would be if we find out, in fact, we can't get it. So I'm happy to hear ideas on that. Again, my biggest concern, I do not want to walk out of here promising something that I can't deliver. I think that's.
Can you
about it.
address and I think it's a good point, because it got my attention as well. The black siding seems to work fairly well as an accent, as a horizontal, kind of element in the architectural composition. But it's used on a fairly, in a large area on that north side. Is there an alternative to having such a large expanse of that being used on that wall?
Yeah, so we looked at that. There were some considerations there. I think, no matter how we look at that, again, being in the location it is, there's going to be that large massing. One alternate could be to, at the top, continue wrap that siding around the top as you see it in the front, and we can do stucco the rest of the building. The original plan was to have windows on the side there. Those, through the hearing process, were removed from the plan. So it is hard architecturally to break that up. There's not a lot of elements that could be placed there, but that would be my other go-to alternative, would be to continue just to wrap the building and have a stucco side.
Okay, thank you. Any other, are there additional questions for staff from the commission?
Just the one thing I did want to note, I believe everyone in the audience knows this, but I want to make sure. There was a comment that said, because Ms. Byer said something, this kind of unique situation is a clear direction by city council, not by Ms. Byer, not by Tom. This idea that, hey, we're going to come back to you, the planning commission is going to make some recommendations and take that to the city manager, was the explicit and clear direction from city council, not by us, not by Ms. Byer, not by Tom. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I was wondering where that came from. Other questions before we go into discussion?
Just a quick question for Tom. Do you know, like when there's major construction projects going on around town, are they always digging up some of the San Onofre breccia stone, or is it just in certain areas? I'm thinking, for example, like what's going on out in the canyon right now with the whole, proposed, it's under construction now, the additional LCAT building there, and they're doing some significant grading in there, and I'm just wondering if they're turning up a bunch of stone there, or do you know?
Yeah, it would probably, I would say, have to be site by site. The one boulder that I included in the photo, actually, we sourced that when Caltrans was doing their project, when they were building the retaining wall near Aliso. We saw that come up and we said, hey, set it aside. We have plans. So it's really hit and miss. And I think where it gets difficult is a lot of times people are motivated to load it in the trucks and dispose it, get it off their site. So it would be hard to track it down in that fashion.
Okay.
Commissioner Goldman, do you have any other questions of staff?
No.
Okay, we'll move to commissioner discussion. Commissioner Goldman, would you like to begin?
Actually, I would not on this one.
Okay. Okay, who wants to begin? Okay.
So my comments are as follows. I'm all in favor of using, I know we looked at a lot of different wood samples and synthetic wood samples when we met whenever year ago or whenever that was. I'm fine. I would be fine with the natural wood, as long I'm not in favor of how it looked in that slide, because it's very beige. And I think, it would need to be stained in my, that's just my opinion of it. And if that was stained, I would certainly go with the natural wood. If that was out of the question, then the combination of the two synthetic woods would be my second choice, but certainly the stained Decoya would be my first choice on that. And as far as the breccia stone, if there was only enough to do the coast highway facing walls, and then potentially use an alternative on the what I'm going to call the gym wall, which is basically what it is on Fifth Street. That'd be great. It's obviously it's more organic. It's a nicer look. So the block was, maybe a consideration based on budget at the time, because everybody was a little concerned that things might get carried away. But if there really isn't any cost difference, I would certainly be in favor of using a more natural looking material on all the areas that were proposed to be the split face block. Let's see. I think those are my two comments. I'm staying out of the landscape adventure because it's not a world I know much about, so I defer to Susan and certainly some of the people in the audience who know more. And I know we got a pretty extensive letter from Ruben Flores. He had a bunch of suggestions in there too. So I'll let the experts make those decisions. But as far as the other elements, the stained wood and the breccia stone, plus a potential second available stone veneer that could go on the Fifth Street side where the gym, basically the gym is on the building. I think that's it for me. Thanks, Tom.
I agree with my fellow commissioners' comments about the wood and also the breccia stone, so I won't say any more about that. Regarding the metal siding on the building, I like the metal siding on the building. I think it recedes from the street. It's quiet. I mean, that's a dark area to begin with. And I think actually the way it wraps around the front, that fascia is very elegant. I would not like to see just a fascia above stucco on that. So I think it's a nice, clean, elegant solution. Regarding the retaining wall, the north retaining wall, the northeast corner, that's the most exposed, the tallest part of the retaining wall there. Is there any reason we couldn't plant a tree at that location to help tamp down the scale of that wall? And in addition to Ann's comment about mixing the ficus and the trumpet vine, which would be beautiful, which I think we should do, I think it would be helpful to have a tree in that corner. And is there anything that precludes planting at that location, planting a tree at that location?
The constraint in that back corner is really the generator. That's where the emergency generator is located.
And that's the white area on the plan. So I don't know what what's the width between the back of the generator and the wall?
We did gain some space when the wall moved 5 feet. So I would say there may be roughly 6 to 8 feet there. We would have to. I guess the only concern would be the tree's ability to spread its canopy against the wall there, because the wall does a 90 there, so it would be constrained on 2 sides.
Yeah, it'd need to be more of a columnar form tree. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Regarding the mixing of the shrubs at the top of the wall, I think that is a good idea, as long as it just doesn't get overdone. Is that a city maintenance? Or is?
Yes,
Okay.
everything on the plan would be self-maintained.
All right, so a mix of maybe 3 things, say, to give a little variety in height and color and character. I think that's a good suggestion.
I just want to make sure you are still requesting that a tree be seriously considered for the corner.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that didn't just float away.
Excuse me. Let's see. Just regarding overall the landscape plan, I'm really disturbed that it's just so generic. There's no spacing. Everything is actually the same size, 5 gallon. And some of those plants should be put in definitely at 1 gallon for the health of the plant and the establishment of the plant. I just don't see, it really is just a concept plan. So however we can get access to some kind of review, I mean, Dave Kiff, is not a landscape architect. However, the city wants to facilitate that. I think there does need to be more review, and whether we approach him individually and suggest that it come back to the Planning Commission or however we want to proceed here. But I can't approve that plan tonight. I could approve all the material changes, but I can't approve the plan. I think I've covered the landscape topics.
If I could speak to that point, I mean, I think what I could commit to would be to meet with the interested the interested landscape parties here through the design development. I'd be happy to do that. Not necessarily coming back to the entire planning commission, but I'm happy to have those working meetings and really take that into consideration.
You also have SWA as peer review, right?
Yes, they did provide the peer review for this. So we
Wasn't much to review, but I mean, they could continue to do that in the next stage.
correct.
Correct. And just to kind of follow up on that, while I appreciate Tom's, offer there, what the point of this meeting is to provide guidance and direction to the city manager. Mr. Perez's offer will go to the city manager, but I just want to be sure that, we all answer to the city manager as well. So Tom has that offer. If for whatever reason the city manager decides, hey, nope, I'm going to go a different direction, just want to be crystal clear with you all that we will undoubtedly share your concerns with said city manager. Tom, just want to make sure.
And we're not approving anything anyway.
Correct.
Yeah,
You're not.
that's right. He's the boss. Okay, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, just kind of run down the list. I mean, again, it's been emphasized to us, what exactly our role here is tonight, which is to provide suggestions to the city manager. So that's what I'll do. Regarding the eucalyptus tree, my suggestion would be to try to replace it with the same eucalyptus species, if that is available. Regarding the variety of plants, my suggestion would be that the consideration of adding some additional plants, such as the yucca, the blue chalk sticks, and aloe, be considered to add to the planting mix. Regarding the Virginia Way shrubs, I'm supportive of doing some mixed planting along there, as long as it meets the goals of providing some screening without becoming a view impact element. My suggestion would be that we go with the removal of the bollards if they're not absolutely necessary from a safety standpoint. To me, they look like they would almost be a safety issue the way they look like a truck would be hitting those things once in a while. I would be in favor of suggesting that the San Onofre breccia be used on the walls on the south coast facing elevation. It seemed to me that the split face block wall on the Fifth Avenue elevation is proposed to have three of the new trees in that area. So it seemed that those trees would be providing some additional screening for that wall. So it wouldn't be as obvious of a architectural element or treatment. The Fifth Avenue fence, I'm okay with that proposed design of having the metal frame with the wood infill. I think that would be nice. It'll tie in somewhat to the building itself and provide some screening of what is going to be the parking lot portion of the project. I would be in supportive of the use of the real Akoya wood. My only concern would be I have somewhat concerned to what Commissioner Dubin said regarding if it's in its natural state, it is appearing to be as light tan as was shown in that one photograph, and it would stay that color or even get lighter over time with weathering, then I'd be also suggesting consideration of staining. However, then that just kind of raises some additional ongoing maintenance issues where just allowing it to weather on its own wouldn't. And that, I think that's it.
We just add something about the trees.
Sure.
Chair. I think I agree with the proposal to replace the Cercis with the eucalyptus. Cercis, just for a lot of reasons, is probably not the right choice.
Is that the red bud?
Yeah. And it's really hard to find a redwood, that Western redbud that looks that good in the picture. I've never seen one.
If I could ask a clarifying question, because I'm making an assumption, but I'd rather ask. Talking about the gate on the side and the natural wood, the Hoya wood, I'm going under the assumption whatever color we stain, say the wood on the building, that we would stain the gate to match.
That's right, but it's not just the gate, it's the whole, isn't it the whole?
The fence. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I just wanted to make sure that that was my assumption, but I thought I'd ask. Yeah.
Commissioner Goldman?
Yeah, so I don't have any comments to add to what's already been said. I mean, I can go through and give my point of view on each thing. It's generally the same as what's been said. Why I didn't want to go first. My comment is, since we are only providing guidance and direction here, and I mentioned this and I asked the question pointedly so I could make this point. I believe we're in a period of high cost inflation. I think it's starting and I think it's going to get worse. I know that this project has been delayed from where it was originally budgeted, which has resulted in budget increases. I would just like to state, in our guidance and direction to the city manager, that in the event that costs do continue to increase and budget gets pushed beyond where it currently is, because we really don't have any recourse because we're not giving a specific approval, that we do all that we can to maintain the integrity of the design and the features that we've talked about here. And we don't wind up value engineering the things that we're going to see, and in particular the landscape when we ultimately put together a plan. So that's really my comment, is that I hope, in the event that there are budgetary pressures and there are changes that are significant to the design, that we do have a chance to look at that and comment on that, and hopefully it doesn't get to that where we keep the integrity of what we've talked about tonight. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sure.
I just, an additional comment, I forgot to mention Commissioner Whiten's comment regarding the elevation on the north elevation with the metal siding. And I agree with her on that. And I feel as though that elevation really is not a prominent elevation. And and a lot was done in the earlier design revisions of the structure itself to help alleviate the concerns of that neighbor that lives on that side. And, one of his main concerns early on was some view impacts, and also what was originally proposed with some of the roofing and stuff, and he was afraid it was going to be highly reflective. So his concerns were kind of view impact and privacy impacts and reflectiveness. And I think this current proposal for that siding is not going to be reflective, whereas if it went with a lighter stucco or something like that, that could potentially be more reflective. So I think, I hate to speak for the neighbor himself when he's not here, but I would think he would probably prefer something to recede more than be visually prominent and reflective.
Okay, I have a few comments. I think these points seem to be considerable unanimity on our position here, Tom, on all these issues that we want to go with the stone. And I believe that if we can't get enough Breccia, which it sounds like everybody kind of thinks we can, that we find another stone solution and keep it stone and not go back to the split face, period. I think you, again, still have the, planning commissioners and Morris at your behest, to informally have discussions on some of these options. I point that out and would recommend that. I don't know that we'll get stomped on by the city council if you do that. I think, the multiple hedge makes sense. I'm also concerned about the landscape plan, but I think we've talked about that enough. I think I support trying harder to find the tree. Um, Yeah, so I think that's, pretty much, my point. So I think there's a lot of unanimity on this. We're not going to call for a motion. So I think it is kind of weird I'll just say it, that we won't know what the building looks like until it's built. And I think that's very unusual. And I wish there was some way that, because I think that the changes that we're making or the recommendations we're making, when you add them all up, and including the landscape plan, the fact that there isn't one, I think under normal conditions would lead us to having a last look at it. But I think, again, I would fall back on informal opportunities to get expert input as you finalize the plans. And I think, is that it? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation. And I think we're all very happy with how this has evolved, from where we started.
I did just want to confirm, so Tom, you're all set in terms of at least direction to take back to the city manager, I guess, any planning staff? in the
Yeah,
room?
no, I feel with the feedback, we got the answers we need or the guidance we need, and we'll finalize the plan and continue working towards that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, we will pause. Actually, why don't we go ahead and prepare to proceed on item 5.2, Design Review 2026-0844, Coastal Development Permit and Variance. So if the staff wants to be ready to proceed with the presentation once we get back to a quorum, that'd be great. And could I make one of the recommendations, Tom? Tom, can I make one of the recommendations that the city manager listen to the tape of our meeting? Great, thank you.
Another yelling session.
A group yell.
Okay, if the staff is ready, we can proceed. Are there any disclosures?
Yeah, I met with Mr. Hanauer on a couple of days ago.
As did I.
As did I.
And I did as well.
Okay,
I did not.
okay. All right, please proceed.
Good evening, Chair Kellenberg and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Sharyar Khan, Associate Planner with the Community Development Department. Presenting item number 5.2, a request for design review, coastal development permit, and variance for a mixed-use project located at 1040 South Coast Highway. The subject site is located within the C1 Local Business District zone along South Coast Highway. The property is currently developed with a single-story commercial building that previously operated as a laundromat and dry cleaner and is currently vacant. Site is surrounded by commercial uses to the north, south, and west, and residential uses to the east across the alley. The project has a history before the Commission. In July 2025, the Commission reviewed and approved Design Review 25-1044 and Coastal Development Permit 25-1045 for a mixed-use project involving a major remodel of the existing building, a second-floor addition with 4 one-bedroom apartment units, exterior facade improvements, elevated decks, parking lot upgrades, and landscaping. The Commission approved the project on a 5-0 vote on July 16, 2025. The City Council subsequently approved the associated conditional use permit for a parking reduction on August 12th, 2025. These are the plans approved by the commission last July. The ground floor commercial area is 2,275, and the upper floor added 2,427 square feet of residential space, configured as 4 one-bedroom apartments with a combined deck area of 630 square feet and a combined planter area measuring 326 square feet. This is the baseline from which tonight's proposed modifications originate. At the July 16, 2025 hearing, the commission directed the applicant to explore mirroring or flipping the upper level residential floor plan to improve privacy for neighboring residential properties along the rear alley. The applicant has followed through on that direction and is now returning with a revised design that implements the mirrored layout. This mirroring is the primary driver behind all of the modifications before you tonight. Mirroring the upper floor required corresponding changes at the ground level. The accessible parking stall has been relocated to the north side of the site, and the accessible path of travel has been reconfigured accordingly. A new restroom has been added within the commercial tenant space, and the staircase and elevator have been repositioned to align with the revised upper floor layout. The mirrored upper level layout results in several changes. Units 1 and 2 have shifted approximately 5 feet towards South Coast Highway. The combined deck area has increased from 630 square feet to 961 square feet, with expansions to all 4 units. Most notably, the Unit 4 deck has been extended along the rear facade. The combined planter area has been reduced from 326 square feet to 118 square feet. Individual unit sizes have also been updated, with 3 of the 4 units increasing slightly in area. All modifications remain within the footprint of the existing commercial building. The proposed, so on the left, you'll see elevations from last year, and on the right, the current proposal. The proposed elevations reflect a contemporary architectural style consistent with the previously approved design. The material palette features a medium bronze metal trim, revised from the originally proposed dark bronze in response to the commission's feedback last year, paired with an ivory painted stucco and a light gray stone veneer replacing the existing flagstone cladding. The street-facing elevation maintains corner-to-corner glazing at the ground floor to support a pedestrian-oriented commercial frontage. The upper floor is set back from the front property line, with the decks located approximately 10 inches from the front property line. The rear elevation has been redesigned to reflect the mirrored floor plan, incorporating horizontal offsets and a projecting stairwell element that breaks up the massing along the alley-facing facade. This articulation directly responds to the Commission's privacy concerns and avoids a flat monolithic appearance. The upper level addition achieves a similar overall height to the surrounding 2-story commercial buildings on the block, and roof-mounted HVAC equipment is centrally located and screened from view. Since the publication of the agenda, staff received public correspondence from a residential neighbor located across the alley at the rear of the project site, raising view equity concerns. That correspondence has been added to the agenda and is available for the Commission's consideration this evening. Because the expanded decks and revised planter now encroach into the required front yard open space area, a variance is required under Laguna Beach Municipal Code Section 25.20.008C2. Staff finds that all 4 variance findings can be made. In summary, the site's location within an established commercial corridor where buildings are already constructed to the front property line constitutes a special circumstance. The variance is necessary to provide residential outdoor living space consistent with comparable mixed-use properties nearby. The encroachment occurs entirely at the upper level and does not remove or reduce any existing publicly accessible open space at grade. And granting the variance is consistent with both the zoning ordinance and the general plan objectives supporting mixed-use infill development.
And it's an existing condition.
Sorry?
And it's an existing condition.
Exactly.
Minor detail.
It's also worth noting that the existing building already occupies the entire front yard, so the nonconformity predates this application. Staff has reviewed the project and finds that all required findings of fact can be made for requested entitlements. Accordingly, staff recommends that the commission adopt resolution number 2026-0844, approving all three entitlements and finding the action exempt from CEQA under section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to answer any question, and the applicant is also here this evening. Thank you.
Commissioner, questions for staff?
Shouldn't an existing condition be exempt from needing a variance? Why isn't, I guess is a better way to put it, why isn't this exempt from needing a variance since the existing storefront is 10 inches from the property line?
So the variance is still triggered because it's the new upper level proposed addition, which is now encroaching into this setback area, so this front yard open space area. So when it comes to the infill ordinance, waives the requirement for a variance for it in the context of not requiring one or not required to correct an existing non-conforming condition. But in this case, like I just mentioned, it's a new element being added on the upper level.
Yeah, I understand that, but this would not ever be a public front yard.
Exactly.
And so it's nonsensical.
Yeah, it's the way that the code is written that it still needs to be applied under a strict reading.
And is there a way for the code to be amended for conditions such as this?
So through the chair, what I'd like to say here is that the code has been drafted, it's approved, it's on the books. This is one of the first projects, if not the first project, to kind of test its effectiveness. So as we see these projects come up, we're going to be able to take those notes and bring it forward for potential amendment in the future. But as of right now, based upon the way that the current ordinance is drafted, this is the result. So that's one of the challenges that we're seeing is that there is not an exemption carved out for those upper level additions like Mr. Khan has noted.
Yeah, so this project is a pioneer, not only for the housing, but hopefully for the elimination of a need for a variance. That's all I have.
Other questions?
I'm not sure if staff or if I have to wait until the applicant. A couple questions. One, per the Planning Commission's earlier suggestion of flipping the upper level of the project was kind of due to the proximity to the houses or the residential units that are on the other side of Glen area there, correct? And because one of them is set back significantly further, so we figured that moving it is now that rear projection that's getting closer to the one of the neighbors, is that the neighbor who's now complaining about the staking?
So no, that is not the neighbor. The public correspondence received was from a neighbor a couple of parcels down from the rear.
Oh, okay.
The north.
And then somewhere in the staff report, I was reading something about after the Planning Commission had previously approved it or given a suggestion to City Council to move on, that they made some additional requirement regarding the parking and transportation demand study. Do you know what I'm talking about there? Didn't they require something about the commercial part of the structure that any employees also have to follow that, or was there something like that in there?
I'm not familiar with any specific conditions. I would defer to the applicant on that. What I can say is that in the draft resolution for this project, there is a condition of approval that requires compliance with the findings of that TDM report.
Okay, fine.
Commissioner Goldman?
No questions. Thank you.
I have a question. Has the building gotten taller than what was approved previously?
No.
Has there been any additional, I guess what I'm anticipating a discussion about view equity in the staff's opinion, have the modifications increased blockage of views?
In staff's opinion, no, it's the same amount of obstruction. It's just mirrored or flipped now.
It's just flipped a little bit different where it's at. Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Would the applicant like to say something?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Kellenberg and Planning Commissioners. I'm Anders Lassiter, architect for the project. Happy to be here for the trailblazer, who is Joe Hanauer, blazing a trail again with this project. I want to thank staff for that incredible staff report. That was really well put together. They've been very supportive and helpful moving this project forward. And we're here tonight to present you that flipped version that Commissioner White and you had suggested could be a nice way to mirror, or rather reflect, the existing nature of the staggered properties across the alley. So Joe committed to doing that and said, Anders, I know we just got approval, but I want you to flip this thing. So we've been working really hard for the last almost year, getting it flipped, joggling some things, making some changes. Do you happen to have my presentation up? Oh, you're looking at it here? Are you sure? Okay, go to the next slide, please. I think we might be at the end, yeah. No, I think that's staff's way of saying you probably don't need to say a whole lot more. But what I wanted to point out is that we did flip the upper floor, which forced some reconfiguration, just some joggling of things on the lower level. The elevator had to move around a little bit, which caused the parking to slightly change. And so we moved where the handicap accessible space was to the other side of the parking lot, but nothing that would have any substantive change to the project at all. Next slide. This was the original upper floor. Next slide, or excuse me, lower floor. And this is the new lower floor with the original lower floor in that pink color, or the orange color rather. So truly not much has changed other than the location of the elevator. Next slide. This was the original upper floor, and staff already showed this to you. And then the next slide will show the new upper floor with that blue area being the existing floor overlaid over it. And you can see how the mass flipped from one side to the other. Next slide. This was the approved street facade, and the next slide will show the proposed street facade. Essentially, it's the same building. There's really no marked change. Next slide. Oh, and one of the commissioners asked if the project got taller. The answer is no, it actually got shorter. There is a reduction in roof height because we changed the roof pitch slightly.
By how much?
Staff, would you agree it's probably in the range of like maybe 6 inches lower at the ridge, if that?
Just less than that.
Yeah, it wasn't a significant change. It was just a shift in the roof pitch, which brought it in alignment with the city's new code. That was something that when we first designed the building had not been in place. And with this revision, we were asked, or it was pointed out that should we just modify that roof pitch slightly, it would bring us into conformance with the requirements of the code. So we did that. Next slide. That was the rear that was originally proposed. Yeah, sorry. Next slide will show the new rear as proposed. Next slide. Well, in summary, I think what you're looking at is a more thoughtful design than what we had previously approved. Even though I loved what we got approved previously, this does reflect a little more of the pattern of development in the neighborhood, as you pointed out, Commissioner Whiten. Planning staff has been in great support of the project. It's now more neighborhood compatible, and the variance findings, I think, can be easily made because this project is neighborhood compatible, and there's existing precedents in the neighborhood for what we're asking for. And with that, I'll just ask for your support tonight and happily answer any questions you have.
I had a question. Yeah, so here's the sentence I was talking about. So after, when the city council finally got it after the planning commission did, it said that, they voted 5-0 to adopt the resolution approving CUP and CDP with an added condition requiring that the occupants of the commercial tenant space comply with the transportation demand management strategies outlined in the RK Engineering Group report. Wasn't that always part of the process, or what? I mean, I think we had some discussion about that when we originally heard it, and I can't remember all the details of the transportation plan, but
I could speak to that, yeah. There was discussion about some of the requirements that were specifically laid out in the transportation plan that required the employees of the commercial space to follow that plan as well. And there was some question as to whether or not that is something that could be enforced by the city, or who could be the enforcement agent. And it was discussed, and I think the final resolution was that would be the owner of the property, the landlord's requirement to enforce that for both the residents of the apartments above and the retail below. So it was already in the approved plan when you approved the project. So there was not really a need for the city council to restate it, but it didn't change what had already been approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Goldman, do you have any questions of the applicant at this point?
No, I do not. My site visit and discussion with the applicant was sufficient.
Okay. We will open the public hearing. Is there anybody that?
Could I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know that we discussed this, when this approval happened, what was it, a year ago or whatever?
July.
Okay.
Not quite a year, but very
Okay.
nice.
What has the Art and Public Places thing changed at all from what you were suggesting would happen, or is there a new plan or a different plan, or?
The plan remains the same, which was to incorporate the Marlowe Bartles tiling along the two sidewalls.
Okay.
That application has not been yet formally made. We've been slaying some other dragons to get this here
Right.
before you today. And I think once we walk away with this approval, we can focus our attention on those two sidewalls. But it's still very much the intent to use Marlowe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Let me just add, that's the intent, but until, you and I know this from past experience, until we see how we're going to deal with it, we don't know. But there will be, the objective I always have with our projects is to do something on site instead of contributing.
Okay.
But we'll have to see just how it works there.
Okay, thank you.
And we're crossing our fingers Marlowe will still be with us, although I see him every weekend at yoga. So far, so good.
Other commissioner questions? Okay. Did we already have open for public hearing? Okay, we'll open it for public hearing. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak? Okay, I see no takers, so we'll close the public hearing. And so there will be no response to the public hearing questions, since there were none. And
I believe the applicant is still entitled to 3-minute rebuttal, but I assume they will.
would you
not
like
be.
to rebut any questions that weren't made?
Well, I was thinking instead of Marlowe, we could use San Onofre Breccia on the sidewalks and maybe garner up all what's left in the city and sell the rest to you at a premium. No further comments. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and go to commissioner discussion.
Well, I can, mine's just very brief, and it's relating to the variance that got triggered because of the design changes. And I can make the findings to approve the variance based on the other legal nonconforming development that's occurred in the rest of the block. So I'll be approving the project.
Commissioner Goldman?
Yeah, I can also make the findings. I think the changes make the project a better project, a more feasible project for the applicant to make. And I think this is a good project for the city, adding the residential units. So these changes, which, allow this project to go forward, I'm highly supportive of.
Thank you.
I agree as well. I can make, all the design review findings for the coastal development permit, also the exempt from CEQA and the variance findings. I was just hopeful that, it seemed like a really good idea to flip the plan in relations to the neighboring properties. I was just hoping that it wasn't by doing that we now, made one neighbor happy and annoyed the other. But apparently we annoyed some other neighbor somewhere else. But yeah, but I'm supportive of this project. I think it's a good one for the city, a good test case for kind of some of the revised rules, and wish you all the luck in moving forward.
Agree with all the previous comments, but I think what's really surprising is how much better the project is. I mean, just by the flip triggered so many things, particularly some of the things that felt a little overwrought, like the stair to the parking lot, which looked like it was out of the 1970s. And now it's just very simple and simplified. And the ADA parking spot makes more sense where it is. The expansion of the private space into those patios, you're really utilizing the roof, whereas before that didn't happen. That's meaningful to, particularly in today's rental market, that will have real value. And the size, is obviously welcome. So, and 4 units of housing finally, and hopefully this is beginning of a lot more. And I just hope the market is ready for this. As Mr. Goldman was saying earlier, whether given all the issues that are afoot, that this will pencil out and make sense. So I'm very supportive.
Yeah, I see that. I'm very supportive as well. I mean, this is a really exciting project. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time. Talking about the talked about the revised zoning, went through the revised zoning, got it approved, and now we have a test case. And I see this as an iconic project for the city. So I know it's been painful and expensive and tedious, but we really appreciate you doing this for the city, and creating a case study, for others to learn from. So I'm obviously supportive. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I will be glad to. By motion, adopt resolution 2026-0844, approving design review 2026-0844, coastal development permit 2026-0845, and variance 2026-0841, and finding said action exempt from SEQA.
Second.
Commissioner Dubin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sadler.
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten.
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman,
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it.
Now get out of here and go build it.
That's the next challenge. I know, I'm gonna get out of it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan.
Congratulations.
Okay, if staff wants to prepare for item 5.3, which is a conditional use permit 2026-076 and coastal development permit 2026-0727. We'll proceed as soon as we get our full membership back. Get water. I got a bunch. Yeah, I had Sean come up and
I had nothing to do with that concept.
We're ridiculous. So we're just doing it. I've got dirt under my fingernails.
I don't get it.
Sore back.
No. No. That was government dollars at work. The company had
Got one
grants
and doesn't do
for
very good.
each, they got a certain amount of money
But he works hard.
for
and it's like
proceeding
doing
with the
things. He
idea.
just requires.
And then a certain amount of money when they got it approved.
He's supposedly a guard.
So who knows how many they got approved that never got built?
Really? Really
So it
a
was,
blow and go guy.
and so when I listened to the spiel, I'm just like, oh,
You
no
know,
way.
He can bring
No
in
way.
help.
I don't want anything to do with it.
Trees and. So anyway, it's fun. Okay, so we will, are there any disclosures?
I talked to the applicant.
I spoke with the applicant.
I had a text exchange.
Okay.
Oh.
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a text exchange too. That didn't say much.
Okay.
I received a text.
Touche.
So if staff would like to proceed, we're ready.
Thank you. Item 5.3 is a request for a conditional use permit and a coastal development permit at 104 North Coast Highway. The project site is on the corner of Broadway and Coast Highway. The right picture shows the existing street frontage from Broadway Street. The proposed project is to establish market rate public self-parking at an existing service station. Prior temporary use permits have been approved for similar self-parking use and layout. The applicant is proposing a total of 30 spaces. I'll go over the breakdown of the parking spaces. So the pink spaces shown on the site plan are not rented. These are the 5 spaces that are dedicated to the convenience store. These 5 spaces exceed the minimum requirements of 4 spaces required for the convenience store per downtown specific plan. 8 additional spaces are for the fuel pumps, which will not be rented, while these 8 spaces for fuel pumps are not counted towards the minimum 4 space requirements for the convenience store. They often function in a dual, as customers using the fuel pumps commonly patronize the convenience store during their visit. So that leaves 17 spaces proposed for the paid parking rental, consisting of 12 compact spaces and 5 standard spaces shown on the site plan with green labels. Before we jump more into the site plan, I'll go over the property history briefly. So this property has a history of having this dual use for gas station and a public parking lot for almost 12 years. The first TUP 14-1215 was started in 2014, and the latest TUP, which was TUP 22-2426, was approved back in May 2023 for 3 years till May 2026. From the latest TUP approval, I just want to highlight some of the conditions of approval that were placed. Some of the project-specific conditions that Planning Commission placed was removal of 3 parking spaces, which are X'd out on the site plan, and removal of the planter adjacent to the Starbucks lot on the left bottom corner, and relocating the employee parking space to the area where the planter was actually removed, which is adjacent to the Starbucks parking lot again. In addition, Planning Commission requested the applicant to apply for a conditional use permit and a parking study to continue the paid parking use in the future. So this CUP has been filed, which is the project here today. However, applicant has requested a parking study requirement to be waived. Given that the site has been operating for a paid parking use for several years without observed parking impacts, and based on inputs from Public Works, Code Enforcement, and Police Department confirming no issues during the last 3 years under the most recent TUP, staff recommends that a formal parking study be waived and that potential traffic and parking impacts associated with the proposed CUP would be minimal and consistent with the prior operations. Going back to the proposed site plan, as you can see, the site plan is similar in nature as the last TUP approved site plan. However, some modifications had to be made to ensure the project complies with all code requirements, as this request is now a CUP. Main changes are that the 2 parallel spots on the top right corner of a Broadway entrance have been angled to meet the minimum parking dimensions. They were previously parallel parking spots. With these new angled spots, the city traffic engineer has also conditioned the corner to be striped to ensure proper circulation and traffic entering properly. Another change is that the employee spot on the left bottom corner has been enlarged to meet the parallel parking standard. And lastly, space number 4, circle in the middle of the site, has been reintroduced, which was conditioned to be eliminated in the last TUP, but this space meets the parking code and the minimum aisle dimension as well. Overall, the site plan meets all objective design standards. Police, Public Works, and the fire department has reviewed the site plan and approved it. Conditions of approval from each department are part of this resolution. In conclusion, there is no previous police activity or code enforcement from the last TUP that suggests this type of use has generated spillover effects, such as backup issues or spilling out to Coast Highway or Broadway Street. This type of use has been in operation for about 12 years. This approval before you would allow the applicant to move from a 3-year temporary use permit to a more permanent entitlement. Based on the history, this use is appropriate and compatible with the surrounding, and also all required findings can be made for the CUP and CDP, particularly policies encouraging the use of private parking to provide more parking for visitors. Staff does not foresee any issues arising in the future. And lastly, staff has received correspondence on this project that are all supportive. In conclusion, staff's recommendation is to waive the parking study requirement, adopt resolution approving conditional use permit 2026-0726 and coastal development permit 2026-0727, and finding said action exempt from CEQA under section 15301. That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the commission for Claire? Commissioner Goldman, are you still awake?
I'm wide awake. This is riveting.
Do you have any questions?
No, Steph, I mean, essentially, this is similar to what we've heard this 2 or 3 times. This, other than the addition of a space and some angling and enlarging the space, this is really nothing more than we have approved before. Is that correct?
Addition of one space.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, yeah.
Yep. So other than one space, you're right.
Okay.
And I think the big move here is to not have it come back every 3 years, to make it a permanent condition. That's really the gist of this.
Actually, it's gonna be like 2 spaces because one of the spaces got reintroduced and actually no, sorry.
Yeah, well,
There's just too many
you've
spaces.
enlarged, you've enlarged and angled, but really only added one, I think.
Yeah.
And Chair Kellenberg, I think that the best way of characterizing the shift from the temporary use permit that has historically been approved at a 3-year term to the conditional use permit is that the decision made here would last on the property in perpetuity. So not only were changes made to the site plan that meet the development standards on site that the temporary use might not have required at that point in time, because at the end of the 3-year term, the intention would be to go back to the existing condition or the original condition. With this project being considered, if it were approved, for instance, it would be allowed to happen in perpetuity unless it were revoked or abandoned. So that's the distinctive difference between what has been heard previously and what you have tonight.
Thank you for that clarification. And Commissioner Goldman, are you finished with your questions?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
My only question, you said this, so I just want to confirm it, that we've added another space, but Public Works and the police department are content with the current plan.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And do you recall why, I don't remember why the planning commission, the last time we approved this TUP, conditioned that space number 4 to be eliminated? Were we concerned about clearance and cars being able to navigate through there?
Yeah, we were concerned about clearance.
And nothing physically has changed to provide more clearance. It's just been clarified with Public Works and everybody that there's no issue regarding clearance.
There's a change. When I give my presentation.
Well, why don't, I think we're done with questions. Would the applicant like to speak?
My name is Marshall Innes. I'm the architect on this project. And yes, I've been working on it for 12 years and they're getting tired of paying me. So that was another reason for getting a conditional use permit. What we did on the back of at the back where we added the extra space, which is at the corner of the building, was at the one point that was 2-way traffic through there. And now after dealing with the Public Works traffic who reviewed the project, we decided to keep that one way and not try to allow 2 lanes. And so we only have to do one 12-foot lane, where before we were questioning how tight it was.
Well, that's a significant change.
Yes. So essentially it through the 3 or 4 temporary use permits we've been here for, we've kind of come up with what really works well and what works well with the people who are paying for the parking. And with the additions of Claire's comments and the Public Works, It's, I mean, I think it's pretty clean as far as the parking lot, and it should work really well. And I think it is, we are moving towards doing something that the city council has tried to mandate, in the fact that some of these private parking lots are used for public use, and helping with weekend traffic and holiday traffic and summer traffic. I think this will be a benefit to the community, and I hope you'll approve it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Couple. So there's no new planters or any kind of landscaping involved in there?
No.
Okay. And has there been any issues with, you know, the staff working at the gas station monitoring the rental versus customer parking?
Only at one space, and that's the employee space that's adjacent to Starbucks, and it's hard to keep people from not parking there and running over to Starbucks. Otherwise, the rest of it works pretty well.
Okay. My only suggestion is with rental spaces 11 and 12, because of the location of the water and air station, if they were just if they were to be shifted to 12 and 13, it centers them more on the water and air station. I think it's not a big deal, but it just seems like when I looked at it, it seemed like it kind of made sense.
I don't see any real issue with that.
Okay.
We haven't done a building plan that says this is where we're going to paint the lines yet. So
Okay.
that would be simple to do.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Goldman, any questions for the applicant?
No.
Thank you, applicant. We will open the public hearing. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and be ready for commissioner discussion. Okay, go for it.
Well, we've been through this a lot of times already. So, nothing really too new here other than trying to formalize this into a more permanent thing. I'm supportive of it. You know, you got some supportive comments from members of the community supporting it. My son recently moved back to town and lives in the kind of the North Laguna neighborhood now, which, you know, I went by driving by that area, is heavily impacted in terms of parking and with the success of Earth Cafe and now Truly Pizza going in recently, that neighborhood is going to be further impacted. You know, whereas this is not, you know, this is down a block or so, a bit of a little walk to get from here to up in that area. But I think anything that can be done to help alleviate parking is appreciated. So I'm willing to support this.
I also support it, and I am comfortable waiving the parking study requirement. It's been functioning well. As far as I could tell, there haven't been any problems over certainly the last 3 years. And it's been vetted by police, fire, and public works. It's a really perfect location for beach parking. You can just park and walk across to the beach. It's unusual, and would be a great place to park if you were a visitor. And the privatization, the private parking lots being used for public parking is something that the city supports and the transportation management plan supports, and we're trying to get more of this to happen. So I think this is a positive step, and perhaps other owners will come forward and do the same thing, because there are other parking lots that have TUPs that could be converted to CUPs.
Yeah, I'm also fine waiving the parking study.
About the waiver?
Yeah, because, you know, it's been operating this way for 12 years. So basically under, you know, the TUPs for the same use as the CUP. And I can also make all the findings for the the conditional use permit, the coastal development permit, and the CEQA findings. So I will be also approving.
Commissioner Goldman?
Yeah, not much more to say. Supportive of the project, can make the findings, and will also approve.
My only comment is I think this is actually a public service, project. We need the parking, and the more the merrier, as long as it works. And obviously our different departments thinks it works. You've done a good job in trying to figure out that puzzle, which it really is. And so, and I think it's also kind of interesting, the process that this has gone through. I mean, it's probably kind of the way it should work in a way. You've got several temporary use permits that sort of test a proof of concept. And then at some point, proof of concept is validated, and so then it becomes a permanent condition. It kind of works. Maybe you probably could have done it earlier, I'm guessing, but then you wouldn't been able to charge the same fees. So
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
okay, so I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion. By motion, the Planning Commission waives the parking study requirements pursuant to Laguna Beach Municipal Code Section 25.52.006. Oh boy, subsection 1 or something, and adopt resolution number 2026-0726, attachment 1, approving conditional use permit 2026-0726 and coastal development permit 2026-0727, and finding said action exempt from CEQA.
Well done.
So I'll second that.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Commissioner Sadler?
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yes.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman?
Yes.
Chair Kellenberg?
Yes,
Motion carries.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Claire.
And we'll be happy not to see you again on this project.
I'll be back.
Okay, so that concludes the public hearings. Is there any business from the staff that they would like to carry on?
Thank you. So I do have 2 updates for the Planning Commission today. So the first is a reminder that for the commission that we have an upcoming joint study session with the Council, Commission, and the Design Review Board. Public review draft of the objective design standards for the 1 and 2 family single residential development will be made available shortly, and I'll be sending that to your city emails.
Is that what the meeting is about?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
So we have a public review draft of the objective design standards available, and that's what the joint study session will be focusing on. It is next Tuesday, May 26th from 3 to 5 p.m. And I have all of your RSVPs.
Is that with the city council or with the design review?
It's actually between all 3 bodies. We have City Council, Design Review Board, and Planning Commission all seated here.
Okay.
Yes.
At about 3:45.
Okay. Yes, I've already forwarded all RSVPs to the coordinating body for the City Council. So they have that information. Okay. And we do have one additional update. So for the Design Review Efficiency Ordinance, it did go to City Council for its first reading last week on May 12th. The item was continued to May 26th to give staff time to meet with certain neighborhood associations regarding the zone-specific design criteria that the draft Design Review Efficiency Ordinance proposes to modify or remove. These are generally redundant standards that are otherwise covered by the DR criteria that apply citywide. So that was discussed with the Planning Commission when it was heard here for consideration, and that's looking at some of the specific plans that are throughout the city where we have the design review criteria identified in multiple areas of the city code. So we're looking at reducing those redundancies, and those conversations are still happening. In addition, staff did share the Planning Commission's recommendations, and they were well received. The only possible change relates to the staff policy for CIP concept reviews. As a part of the City Council's annual review of the CIP, the City Council would discuss which projects should start with the Planning Commission for concept review in accordance with the policy that will be adopted. So that's something to come. We'll go ahead and give you updates as we get there, but that's what we're seeing as of right now.
I'm not sure what that means.
What that means is that rather than having a broad policy across the board, they would consider them case by case. So when they know what their CIP might look like for that coming year, they would identify which ones would come to Planning Commission specifically instead of having a broad policy across all boards. So that's all still in development, but that's what we're seeing from that cursory meeting, that first reading that was ultimately continued.
Has a date been set for the interviews for the Planning Commission?
I don't recall if the date has been set, but I can follow up separately.
I think it's the 2nd. Oh, 6th.
We obviously don't know.
We'll follow up separately with
I
that additional
haven't seen
information.
any- I haven't been
Okay.
notified and that's,
Yeah, no.
that's for those of us that want to be there, you know, that's an important date to see if we're going to be on the continent or not.
That's helpful. Yeah, so I'll follow up with the city clerk's office tomorrow and be able to get an update to you.
Right.
Okay. Any other business from the commission?
I've got a couple quick questions. Any updates on Hotel Laguna that anybody knows of?
No. I mean,
Okay, that's fine.
other than the same old, as I
Same.
understand it, there's
It's just,
potentially interested buyers that are always kind of in the process of looking into it. How serious or how, you know, far along they are in the process is always kind of a mystery to us. We as staff remain very, very responsive. Anytime that, you know, receiver or anyone calls, we make sure to kind of give them the lay of the land. Myself, I've probably been on 3 or 4 Zoom calls, you know, of varying degrees. One of them asking, what is the Coastal Commission? Which is obviously a lot more different than, hey, you know, with some more further plans. So, you know, it's
Is that a short answer?
yeah. And so, yeah, that's that.
okay. And the South Laguna parking meter approval, was that appealed?
Yes,
It was.
yes.
Correct. Yeah, it was appealed to the Coastal Commission by one of the, I believe, one of the
By,
residents or
uh,
Brian Mena.
Brian.
correct.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang it. I guess the last thing is, and I don't know if you can comment on it, but the Dornan lawsuit, the big one.
Correct. No, I mean, once again, I would, you know, if anyone has wants any information, the case is public. You can go on
Okay.
the cases. As I understand it, we have a dispositive motion, i.e. a motion for summary judgment that has been filed with the court. As I understand it, the judge that's under submission, and we are patiently waiting to hear back.
All right, thank
What
you.
is that case?
It's the Temple Hills.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other, if there's no other business, we can move to adjourn. Would somebody like to move?
What's the date?
Oh, there it is.
June 3rd.
I move that we adjourn to our next regular meeting on May 20th, 2026.
Oh, June.
June 3rd.
Sorry, June 3rd, 2026
A second.
at 6 PM.
Commissioner Dubin?
Yes.
Commissioner Saddler?
Yes.
Commissioner Whiten?
Yep.
Chair Pro Tem Goldman?
Yep.
Chair Kellenberg?
Yes.
Motion carries, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
See you all.